Okay, and now we're going to go back to the event sheet. And just like this event, every play timer seconds, we're going to make an event very similar to that for the power up. So it's going to be a system event called every X seconds, and we're going to make the time the variable double shot time. And we are going to add an action for the power spawner called set position, and we're going to make the position, the X position, random 640. And we're going to add another action for the power spawner again called spawn another object, and we are going to make it the double shot power up. And last thing we're going to do is going to be an action for the double shot power up itself called set angle of motion, and we're going to set the angle to 90 degrees. All very similar to how the enemy plane works. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with events where the player is attacking the enemy. So right now we're going to add an event for the keyboard called onKeyPressed, and we're going to choose the key, and it's going to be the spacebar. And we are also going to right click this event here, and we're going to click add another condition. So for the action to happen here, both conditions have to be met before the action can happen. So we're going to have a condition, a system condition called compare variable, and we're going to see if 2shot is equal to 0. So right now we're going to add a player action called spawn another object, and we're going to make that object the player bullet 1. And now we are going to add another action for player bullet 1 called set angle of motion, and we are going to set the angle of motion to 270. Okay. We are going to take this same event, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to add a keyboard event called onKeyPressed, and we're going to make it the spacebar. We're going to right click it, add another condition, a system condition called compare variable, and we're going to see if 2shot is equal to 1. And we're going to add an action for the player called spawn another object, and we are going to be spawning player bullet 2. And using we're going to use the image points that we created earlier, so we're going to be putting it on image point 2. We're actually going to take this time to go back to the last event and fix the action that that we created, and we're going to make that image point 1. Not that it would have been a huge deal, because image point 1 is the nose of the plane, so the bullet would have been coming from the center of the plane. We have changed it to image point 1, where the bullet is coming out of the nose of the plane. We're going to add another action in our new event, and it's going to feel similar. We're going to be spawning another object, and it's going to be a player bullet 2, but this time the image point is going to be image point 3. So we're going to have two bullets spawning from the plane, one from the left side and one from the right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an action for player bullet 2, and we're going to set the angle of motion, and we're going to set it to 270. Now we're going to drag this to be in between our two spawning bullets here, and we're going to add another action. It's going to be the same action for the bullet, set angle of motion, and make it 270. That way, this set angle of motion refers to this bullet that spawned, and this angle of motion refers to this bullet that spawned. If you put both at the bottom, it might not necessarily work the way you're thinking. Okay, so now we're going to be dealing with collisions. So we're going to add an event for our player bullet 1, and it's going to be on collision with another object, and we're going to select the enemy plane. And we are going to make an action for the enemy plane called destroy, which is here under the miscellaneous category, destroy. And we're also going to add an action for the enemy plane called spawn another object, and we are going to spawn an explosion object. And we're actually going to flip these around. We're going to make sure that the explosion definitely does get spawned before the enemy plane is destroyed. Otherwise, there is a chance that the explosion may never spawn because the enemy plane is already destroyed, so therefore it cannot spawn anything new. And we are going to do that again. We're going to click over here, left click over here, and we are going to right click and click copy, and we're going to right click in this space here and click paste. Because not much is really changing here. The only thing that's changing, if you press back and back, is which bullet, which player bullet it is. So if I select player bullet 2 now, and I press next, it already has what we had, the action we already had before. And the object. So now let's see what the game is looking like. We're going to press play, and we're going to see what it's looking like. Oh, well, that has to be moved. That's fine. But that is pretty good so far. We have enemy planes getting destroyed when we shoot them. Although they do seem to be leaving the explosion behind. So that's okay. That's something we can add in a second. And also, our bullet keeps going after it destroys the plane. So that's also something that should be fixed. Also, we can't be killed yet. And we also cannot collect the power-up yet. So these are all things we're going to go change right now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an event for explosion, and under the animations section we're going to select on finished, and believe it's called animation 1, but you know, let's just go make sure. We're going to click on the explosion, and it is called animation 1, so you know, keep in mind the name of the animation because it might ask you. So we're going to add an action for the explosion, and it's going to be called destroy. So after the animation is finished, the explosion will be destroyed. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the collision, the player's bullet colliding with the plane. So we're going to add an action here for player bullet 1, and we're going to select destroy. And we're going to do the same for the player's other bullet, and we're going to select destroy. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to make the power-up work. We're going to add an event for the player on collision with another object, in this case double shot. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an action, a system action called set value, and we are going to set the value of 2-shot to 1. And then we are going to add another action, this time for double shot, and we are going to set it to destroy. So let's see where we're at with this. We're going to go test it again. Still haven't moved that across the screen. We got to fix that. Okay. So you see the explosions are now going away after the explosion's finished. We could definitely make those explosions go a little faster. They're a bit slow. That's okay though. And we're going to see the power up now. And we definitely have a power up that works. Although the game seems to be a bit easy. So maybe we should have a way for the player to die. So we're going to go set that up right now. We are going to add an event for the player on collision with another object, and we're going to select the enemy plane. And that action is going to be for the a system action called subtract from, and we're going to be subtracting from player health. We're going to be subtracting 10 because player health starts at 100. 10 hits seems very fair. What we're going to do here is we're going to right click the event and we're going to add another condition for the player, and it's going to be this action, is flashing. We're going to right click is flashing, and we're going to select invert. So as long as the player has collided with the enemy plane and the player is not flashing, we're going to add another action for the player, and we are going to tell the player to flash. And these are the default values. These values seem pretty good. You could always change it. We're going to change duration to 3. So the player is going to flash for 3 seconds if the player is hit by the enemy plane itself. So that way the player can't get hit multiple times in a row for at least 3 seconds after being hit. So while we're here, we're just going to add another event before we test it again, And this is going to be a system event called every tick. If I could find it, here it is. Every tick. And we're going to add an action for player health, and it's going to be called set text, and we're going to set the text to health colon space, and then outside of the quotes ampersand, the and sign, and the name of the variable player health. We are going to also add another action for the score text, and we are going to set text to score colon space, and then outside of the quotes ampersand score. Okay. One other thing we're going to do is, since we have a score now that's going to be visible on screen, we're just going to add one more action to the player bullet on collision with the enemy plane. So we're going to add an action here, a system action called add to, and we're going to add 10 to the score. And we could right click this and select copy, and if you select an action in the next event, we can right click and click paste. So now we have that in both of the events. So now we're going to go test it and see what this looks like. Okay, so we have 100 health, we just got 10 score, and I just got hit, and I have 90 health, so everything's working as it should be. 80 health, 70 health. Shot the plane and got 10 more points. Got the power up, and I'm firing double, which is good. Good. Okay. So there is not much left to do. So let's see. First things first, we're going to move this out of the way because that's getting annoying. The second thing is we are going to click the plane and add the enemy plane, I should say, and add another behavior called destroy outside of layout. Now, you wouldn't notice it for a long time, but if you let a lot of enemy planes go past you, they don't, the computer doesn't just stop computing for that plane. It keeps track of that plane even though it is way far away from the layout it's currently on. So we should destroy it outside of the layout so the computer can keep more RAM and it won't bog down the computer. We're going to do that for the bullets as well. We are going to add a new behavior called destroy outside a layout, and we're going to do that for all of the bullets. We're going to do it for this one, behaviors, add new behavior, destroy outside of layout, and the last bullet. Okay, destroy outside of layout. So last thing that one of the last things that we need to do before you go off on your own and do your assignment is that we need to have the enemy plane shoot at the player, because this game would be a little too easy if the enemy plane couldn't shoot at the player at all. So we're going to go to the event sheet and we are going to add a new event, a system event called for each, this one. And for each enemy plane, we're going to add another condition. And we are going to select the enemy plane. We're going to select compare instance variable. And we're going to choose ptimer. We're going to say less than or equal to and 0. Okay. So we're going to add an action for the enemy plane called spawn another object. And we're going to select the enemy bullet. Okay. We're going to add an action to the enemy bullet called set angle of motion. Now, to make this a little tougher for the player, we're going to have it so that the enemy plane shoots directly at the player instead of just straight like the player can. So our angle is going to be an expression, and it's going to be angle, lowercase a, parentheses, enemy bullet dot x, comma, enemy bullet dot y, comma, player dot x, and comma, player dot y. Now, what this is doing is that it's creating an angle based on the coordinates of the enemy bullet to the coordinates of where the player is. So now the enemy bullet is going to fire directly at where the player is. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add an action for the enemy plane, and we're going to choose set value, and we're going to set ptimer to 1. Okay. So let's see what this looks like. Not exactly shooting at the player. Let's see what's going on. Enemy bullet X, enemy bullet Y, player X, player Y. Okay. Let's see. Give me one moment.